For NYUpInSyracuse.com, I'm Matt Parrino, joined by Ryan Talbot, and we are breaking down the top potential draft targets for the Buffalo Bills in the 2019 draft. The Bills sit at 9, may move up, may move down. I know we keep talking about it, but it's a serious possibility. And where some of these players go in the draft and where the Bills would consider them, I think depends on where they draft, if they stay at 9 or move. And next up is a very interesting prospect when it comes to where they'd have to be to consider an Andre Dillard out of Washington. By some accounts, the top left tackle in this draft, a guy that was at the Senior Bowl. His stock has been on the rise over the past couple months. Ryan, what are your impressions of Andre Dillard to start off with?
Well, he's highly athletic, and if you're talking about the highest ceiling in terms of potential, I think Dillard might have the highest ceiling above among the top three, along with Juwan Taylor and Jonah Williams. But every player doesn't necessarily meet that ceiling, so to speak. So there are some questions about him, especially at 9. Here's a guy that is terrific in pass protection. Really didn't have to worry so much about the run game in college. That's something he's going to have to develop as a pro. And that right there is, I don't want to say a red flag, but that right there makes me think that maybe he's not the right fit for Buffalo, because as much as you want to have Josh Allen with the ball in his hands throwing the ball, you also want to have a balanced offense, and you don't necessarily want your first pick to be someone who isn't necessarily going to make an impact in the run game as a rookie.
Yeah, and I think that he's definitely a candidate if the Bills trade down to the lower end of the first round, if he's still on the board, because of some of those question marks. You want a well-rounded guy, in this day and age when you're going in the first round. You look at the tight end position, and the difference between TJ Hawkinson and Noah Fant is a perfect example. I mean, there's so much upside with Noah Fant and what he's able to do as a playmaker, but because he doesn't excel as much as a blocker, his stock takes a bit of a dip, or his value takes a bit of a hit. And with Andre Dillard, a little bit one-dimensional. He's working very hard. I spoke to him at the Senior Bowl, and all he's been doing all offseason long is trying to develop himself, as a run blocker, learn the schemes, learn the different ways that he has to move as a lineman to excel and to develop that part of his game. But, I will say, too, at the same time, you talk to him for a few minutes, and you do kind of get an understanding as to what work ethic he has. He started playing football in 8th grade, didn't really like it right off the bat. He started playing, football in high school because he was so big, and he didn't really like it. He wasn't very good at it, but he stuck with it. He kept going. He kept kind of fighting through it, and all of a sudden that experience led to, a love affair for the game of football that he has still to this day. I mean, on a scouting report, highly intelligent, high character guy. Those are kind of traits that I think that this regime is really looking for in potential prospects. And, if you can move back a little bit and take a guy like Dillard, who, like you said, may have the highest ceiling, I think that's where it makes the most sense.
Yeah, without a doubt. And the Bills were clumped in with about 10 other teams, and I want to say an Adam Schefter tweet, I can't remember if it was him or not, that said that they either hosted him for a pre-draft visit or a private workout. If I were to guess for the Bills, it was most likely a private workout, see how he could do with some of the terminology, see how he looks foot-wise in terms of what they would be looking for from, obviously, a pass blocking, but also a run blocking scenario. The interest is there, at least in some capacity, from Buffalo. But at the same time, if you're going to take an offensive tackle in round 1, whether it's at 9 or whether it's in a trade down scenario, I still think their top target is going to be Jonah Williams at the end of the day. I think he's the most polished product of the three. I think that Brian Dable already, goes in feeling pretty comfortable with the guy, knowing what he can do from their time together. This is a guy that checks all the boxes too: character, work ethic, a guy that sits there and makes Excel spreadsheets on his opposition in terms of the pass rush moves that they use. Did they win? Did they lose? Is it something that he has to be ready for? So definitely a junkie in that regard. Dillard's a very talented player, and I wouldn't be surprised if 5 years from now we say, oh boy, this guy's a special player. He was the top tackle in this draft class. It's just one of those scenarios where you just never know if those prospects will meet their ceiling.
It's a guessing game this time of year, Ryan. So many potential big-time players in this draft. and a few with a lot of question marks, like an Andre Dillard. So it's going to be interesting to see what Brandon Beane do this Thursday, and for all of your coverage leading up to the draft. Guys, keep it locked on nyupsyracuse.com. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We'll have you covered in so many different ways as we move towards this important night. Buffalo Bills at number 9. It's going to be a fun time. Thank you so much for listening.